Downton Abbey is British TV drama at its finest. Off-screen, many cast members have faced hardships rivaling those of their characters, including shocking accidents, heartbreaking health struggles, and unimaginable loss. Michelle Dockery is arguably one of the most famous cast members of Downton Abbey. As Lady Mary, Dockery displayed an incredible range of emotion, especially when her character's husband, Matthew Crawley, died in a car crash. Mary losing Matthew was fiction, but Dockery's real life was not so dissimilar.
Somehow, with Matthew's death, all the softness that he found in me seems to have dried up.
Around the time Mary was coping as a widow, the Downton Abbey actor's real-life partner, John Deneen, was gravely ill with cancer and was not expected to survive. She told The Guardian, "One of the difficult things at the time was the parallels with Mary. It was just baffling, and still is to me, that my character's storyline was so similar." In 2015, Deneen died, and Dockery was devastated. Although she and Deneen never had the chance to celebrate their wedding, Dockery found it easy to relate to roles featuring widows. Referring to the character she played in the Netflix series Godless, she said, "I refer to myself as a widow, yes. We were engaged and married at heart, and so I do consider myself a widow. It's why I related to Alice so much." Dockery's portrayal of Alice was so powerful that it earned her an Emmy nomination, underscoring how much grief she carries with her. As she revealed in the same interview, "I don't have the vocabulary to describe what it felt like, and what it still feels like." Downton Abbey's Mr. Carson is especially beloved, thanks to actor Jim Carter. Carter brings both seriousness and tenderness to the role, making Mr. Carson one of the show's most believable characters. His performance earned him 4 Emmy nominations, but Carter's life has not been all fame and celebration. When he was still a teenager, his father died suddenly. In 2020, Carter recalled, "My dad's death was a shock. It came out of the blue. I was 16. My sister was 11. My brother was 19. It affected us all differently. The loss was made even harder by the way his community handled it. Death was treated as a taboo subject." Carter explained, "We didn't talk about it, and my sister wasn't allowed to go to the funeral. I think the thinking was that she would be saved from a trauma, but actually, it has caused a lot of problems. That experience ultimately shaped how he thinks about death." Today, Carter speaks openly about the subject and encourages others to do the same. "I think it really helps if you can talk about it and prepare."
I think that's so important to be able to talk about death in a kind of a reasoned way, not to be frightened of it.
Downton Abbey fans know Laura Carmichael as the spunky Lady Edith. In a conversation with The Telegraph, Carmichael gushed about Edith's depth. "She can drive, she took a job in the war, she's a single mother and a woman publisher in a man's world. All in all, a thoroughly modern role model."
Listen, everyone. You have a journalist in the family.
That said, playing Edith wasn't only about portraying a trailblazing 20th century woman. In season 3, her sister, Lady Sybil, died of eclampsia, thrusting Edith into despair. If Carmichael seemed to capture that grief with uncanny intensity, it's because she was mourning a loss of her own. She revealed in the same interview, "After I graduated and was in a state of despair about getting an acting job, 2 of my friends died in an accident. It was so shocking, devastating, and really put life into perspective. Her grief lingers to this day." Carmichael added that she still thinks about her late friends daily. Because of that tragedy, she draws on real pain when depicting Edith's sorrow. "Whenever Edith and Mary talk about their dead sister Sybil, tears always come unbidden to my eyes." The fact that Carmichael also has a sister in real life deepens that connection even more. Elizabeth McGovern plays Lady Cora in Downton Abbey, an American woman who moved to Great Britain as a so-called dollar bride, trading money for prestige. Although McGovern sometimes lamented the limits of Cora's role, she felt they were fitting given the constraints of the era. In an interview with The Guardian, she admitted, "I wish at times she could have had more interesting stories." But she added that it wouldn't have made sense for Cora to wield any more political or social power because that wouldn't be accurate to the time. Like her character, who was shaped by historical context, McGovern's career was influenced by the sexist realities of 20th century Hollywood. In the same interview, she confessed that acting roles available to women were often objectifying. "I knew my job early on was to fulfill a man's fantasy of the woman they wanted. It never occurred to me to even question it. It wasn't only her on-screen presence that felt objectifying. Her whole existence often fell into this dynamic, partly because of the downsides of living in the spotlight." She revealed, "The price you pay for fame is that it becomes really hard to have any relationships of intimacy because you are collateral. Your whole being has sort of been sold, and that creates a tension about what people want from you." Brendan Coyle was part of some of the most unforgettable Downton Abbey scenes as the valet John Bates. On the show, Bates falls in love with Anna, played by Joanna Froggatt, and they're one of the most beloved couples in the series. Sadly, Coyle's real-life story hasn't all been butterflies and roses. He comes from a difficult background marked by feelings of isolation. In an interview with E! News, he explained, "I never felt like I belonged where I came from. I worked at my dad's butcher shop from a young age, and after I started school, I went to a meat factory and did all that. It's really weird because I hated it at the time. I just wasn't cut out for it." Things took an even harder turn when his father died suddenly. Coyle was just 17, but the loss pushed him to think seriously about what he wanted from life. He admitted in the same conversation, "It's a bit weird. It's an awful thing to say that the death of my father was the catalyst for me to get out of town and move on, but it was." From there, he gave acting a shot and found his place in the industry. The rest, as they say, is history.
What shall we drink to?
The future.
The success of Downton Abbey comes down to the talent of its cast, and Jessica Brown Findlay is no exception. As Lady Sybil Crawley, she portrayed a happily married woman experiencing both the excitement of pregnancy and the stress of starting a family. Ultimately, the character dies of eclampsia in a heart-wrenching scene that Brown Findlay delivered flawlessly. Off-screen, Brown Findlay is no stranger to the joys and sorrows of pregnancy and birth. She and her husband welcomed twins via IVF in 2022, but before their arrival, she endured a series of miscarriages.
Well, before the boys were born, I had 3.
Even after the birth of her twins, she suffered yet another miscarriage, which left her devastated. She and her husband had been hopeful, and the loss broke her heart.
I was obviously devastated.
Downton Abbey wouldn't have been the same without the iconic Dame Maggie Smith. As the witty Violet Crawley, Smith delivered a string of unforgettable zingers.
"I doubt we'll meet again."
Do you promise?
But decades before Downton Abbey, Smith faced a number of challenges, none perhaps as difficult as her first marriage to actor Robert Stephens. Smith walked down the aisle with Stephens in 1967 in hopes of finding stability. To her surprise, her new partner offered anything but. Stephens was an alcoholic, and his dependence weighed heavily on both Smith and their marriage. In an interview with The Guardian, Smith admitted she hadn't noticed anything was wrong during their first year together. But as time went on, the signs became impossible to ignore. "We had 2 little boys. He didn't understand. I sure as hell didn't understand. It got worse, and then it went on getting worse and worse. In the end, it was destroying everybody." To make matters worse, Stephens repeatedly cheated on Smith. Though she urged him to get help, he was dealing with other struggles that made the relationship unsustainable, including violent mood swings. Ultimately, those issues brought the marriage to an end, and the couple divorced in 1975. It's no secret that Robert James-Collier is a fantastic actor. During his time on Downton Abbey, he left a strong impression as the footman Thomas Barrow. Thomas was a deeply complex character who stood out for marrying routine dishonesty with a dash of loneliness. He was also gay, which led to several storylines about his sexuality, something that in early 20th century England could lead to real persecution.
"I'm sorry I put you through all that trouble. Forget it. It's in the past."
Unfortunately, James-Collier's incredible performance didn't translate into broader opportunities in Hollywood. Speaking to Radio Times, James-Collier explained, "I think audiences in the US can identify quite easily with the quintessential English gent and English lady, whereas a neurotic, dark, gay character like Thomas is a hard thing to put into the American market. It can lead to typecasting."
I wouldn't say you're an evil character, but I'm a gay predator.
Adding to the frustration, James-Collier said that landing straight roles was especially difficult. Because Thomas Barrow is gay and is essentially the bad guy for much of the show, a lot of people within the industry can only see you as that. Lily James has come a long way since she first landed the role of Lady Rose on Downton Abbey. Back in those early days, she struggled with imposter syndrome and found it difficult to take on emotionally charged scenes, especially those involving death. Much of that struggle, it seems, traced back to sorrow-filled personal memories, most notably the death of her father. In an interview with The Telegraph, James explained that her father died of cancer at the age of 54. At the time, she had trouble coming to terms with the loss. As she put it, "There was so much life in him. He was brilliant." The grief was compounded by the deaths of several other family members around the same period, including her grandmother. Those losses made it even harder for James to tap into the feelings of sadness that she needed to fuel certain scenes. She admitted, "I couldn't really go there. Sometimes there was coldness to me around that." Eventually, she broke through those barriers, but only after a great deal of deep emotional work. In 2024, tragedy struck the acting community when Downton Abbey star Dame Maggie Smith died at 89. Described by King Charles as a national treasure, Smith was known for her go-getter attitude. Less than a year before her passing, Smith modeled for Loewe. Her final film, The Miracle Club, premiered in 2023 when she was 87. Smith's death left many of her co-stars with a gaping hole in their hearts. At the time, Michelle Dockery fondly told People magazine, "There was no one quite like Maggie. I feel tremendously lucky to have known such a maverick. She will be deeply missed." Joanne Froggatt also shared words of mourning. Writing on Instagram, she expressed her admiration for a colleague she came to hold dear. She truly was a trailblazer, with the sharpest wit, the greatest talent, the naughtiest sense of humor. She was a force to be reckoned with, and underneath all of that, a huge heart. During the filming of Downton Abbey, the grand finale, cast members said they felt Smith's presence strongly. Elizabeth McGovern told The Guardian, "Everything she represents is there. She's in every room, in every interaction, so it's not like she's not there. It's a weird thing."